everyone. Welcome to Kim's Corner here in LaRouge. Today our topic is going to be stereotypes. Today our guests are the proprietor of LaRouge, Benedict Guerrier. He's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, among many other things. Secondly, we have Dr. Akil Khalfani. He's the Director of Africana Studies at Essex County College. Then we have Dosso Kassimou. He is the founder of Sanji CDC and the founder and former chairman of the North African Commission. And we have an attorney with us, Liza Lopez. She's from Ecuador. And last but not least, we have Mr. Shadi Ibrahim. He is the director of the School of Public Affairs and Administration at Rutgers University. Let's give it up for him at the Kim's Corner.
I have to check. Liza, are you Ecuadorian?
No, I'm Puerto Rican.
Thank you. Hey, we had to make a correction there. Anyway, everybody, welcome to Kim's Corner. We're here at the beautiful LaRouge. I did tape a show here before with the proprietor here. So you're going to hear a lot of background stuff. We're going to have audience participation. We're going to get questions from the audience. But today our topic is stereotypes. And we're all familiar with stereotypes for different ethnic groups. And first of all, I want to start it off, maybe Dr. Khalfani could answer this question. With the history of stereotypes, do you know, how did stereotypes begin? Where did they come from?
Well, I would start out by saying that I think that stereotypes, they've always been around, right? And so the different groups, different people, for thousands and thousands of years, I believe we've had stereotypes. But the thing is today is how people act upon them, right? So that people do things that contribute negatively on them. So if what your actions are dictates how a stereotype is experienced. If you do something negative based on your perception about something or someone, then you're going to have that type of response. You're going to have that type of reality where stereotypes play themselves out in society in a way that becomes negative and conflictual.
Now, Mr. Kassimou, Dosi, you're from
Ivory Coast.
You're from the Ivory Coast. So how do you have your stereotypes in Africa?
You see, let me just do this. Me being born and raised in Africa and coming here and studying, connecting with brothers and sisters from here, I think this is one of the best topics. And then this topic is even so important that you see that Africa, with all the resources Africa has, but our people are not being able to tap on it because of stereotype. And stereotype mostly, I think, is fed with assumption. Assumption. You have people in Africa who probably never traveled before, but they will tell you, once you go to America, this is where you need to go, this is where you need to go.
And I wanted to ask you a question. What do they think about, what are the stereotypes that Africans have on African Americans, on Americans?
It's the vice versa, but let me go for African first, to the African American. The movie we see in Africa is always portraying that bad side of the black folks. Killing. So you got somebody that never traveled, it's automatic on his head. It's like, whoa, when you go, stay away from those people because they're just a killer. This is not the whole answer. Now you got African American here faking, Africans don't like us. They don't like us, but this is not true. I travel to Africa all the time. People want to see the people. They know that half of them is gone. They know that. They're conscious of that. But what can they do? So I think this is a greater dialogue because it's both sides. Both sides, we've been working along with African Institute to do the bridging the gap among the people of African descent. I think it's something we need to do on a bigger scale. And if you really want to go somewhere as a people, because the stereotype is real, the assumption is real, and then unless you really try to decipher the reality, you're going to be thinking, hey, these people are bad. They don't like me.
Now, Shadi, you're Jordanian and Palestinian, correct?
Palestinian, Jordanian.
Okay, so what was your perception of America, Americans, or African Americans before you arrived here?
It was definitely difficult to just move to this country at the age of 17 and not know so much about the culture and just learn about the different ethnic groups through television and media. And I think that's where the core of the problem is. It's yes, we make assumptions. yes, we make generalizations, but people tend to get these assumptions from the wrong sources. Watching television and viewing African Americans from BAT or Hollywood definitely gave me the wrong impression. Growing up and going to college and interacting.
So you had a negative, you felt negative towards America,
Absolutely.
African Americans when you first came?
Absolutely, because my only source was a bad
The
source.
media.
And growing up and going to college and interacting with African Americans, I realized that was completely wrong, and it wasn't true. It wasn't reality. And again, if this sounds aged, the reality TV is not reality.
Mm-hmm.
What's being portrayed on television and the media is not true, and unfortunately, many of the folks nowadays use television and propaganda as a source of information, and that contributes so much to what we call stereotyping these days.
Now, Ms. Lopez. Ms. Lopez is an attorney and also an educator. You being a woman and Puerto Rican. Now, were you born in Puerto Rico and then you came here?
No, I was born in New York.
Okay, you were born in
So
New
I'm
York.
a native New Yorker.
So you're a native New Yorker. So I know in your culture, in the Puerto Rican community, they had different stereotypes about us. And what are some of the things that you heard about us, but you kind of were kind of closely knitted with us?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised in Spanish Harlem, and our Blacks and Puerto Ricans are very close in New York. We're raised together. We eat at each other's homes. I couldn't say that I per se had a negative perception of the African American community. In fact, growing up in New York, I was more sort of the product of discrimination.
Now, you were in Spanish Harlem, though, where it's mostly Hispanics in your neighborhood, though?
Blacks and Hispanics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Guerrier, the proprietor of La Rouge, Haitian, right?
Yes.
Your background. Were you born here or were you born there?
Yes, I was born in Orange, New Jersey.
Okay.
And both of my parents were from Haiti.
Mhm.
And stereotypes came on both sides. I didn't know much about Haiti until I started traveling from Haiti. From what you saw on television, it was extremely poor. Everything was dirt, and like you said, everybody was just killing each other with what you call back in the tonto mapu and all of those different things. And and also my father being raised in Haiti and then coming here, I think about 25 years old. What he went through in the United States, he was very afraid of Black Americans. So he raised us like, listen, don't do this, don't do that, because they're going to do this. So it was like I was caught between cultures. And it was when I became, friends with everybody that I was able to make, an educated opinion on my own. And that's why I don't typically stereotype. But it's almost first nature. It's kind of.
So what are some of the stereotypes that you heard or that he heard about Black Americans? And we don't want to offend anybody, but we're going to keep it real. We don't want to offend people, but we want to keep it real. Like raghead. Has anybody ever heard what a raghead is? Nobody knows what a raghead is. Anybody audience know what a raghead is? And who they call ragheads? Nobody? Dr. Khalfani. Come on.
I've heard the term or two. Yeah.
Take a guess. Anybody in my audience want to take a guess what they think a raghead is?
Arab American.
Exactly. Those are sheiks, the Indians. They call them because they wrap their hair. And I had never heard of that before.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I went on, I kind of looked some things up and I said raghead. I never heard of raghead before. And I guess because they wrap, their heads. And that's a religious thing too. So now you're talking about somebody's religion. It crosses the line. I think stereotypes cross the line. And where does it border between racism and a stereotype? It kind of cross. Maybe you want to handle that.
Yeah, well, let's first differentiate, right?
Mhm.
Because racism and prejudice are two different things, right? So racism deals with power first and foremost. So that you're looking at power of a group of people to discriminate against another group of people that affects their life chances. So people confuse discrimination or bias and racism. But racism, you know, people ask me all the time. I teach class on this. People ask me all the time, can black people be racist? And I say no, because racism talks about power. So can people of African descent in this country be racist against Europeans here? No, because they don't have the opportunity the power to affect the life chances of European Americans. Now they can have prejudice against them, and so therefore they act out on their prejudice. But that's not going to deny a group of people a job, deny a group of people access to higher education. You may not like what I say, or that person may not like what you say, and so then that doesn't mean it doesn't create conflict, but it still doesn't amount to racism.
Okay. Do you think stereotypes play a part in that, though?
Oh yeah. I mean, because we all have. I think we all have. Once again, like I said in the beginning, we all have biases and stereotypes. I may not like people who are shorter. I might not like people whose hair looks a certain way. But what happens is that how I act upon that is the deciding factor. And so we have to look at people's actions, and then we have to look at collectives of people's actions, not just individuals. Because when you look at if we look at the policing issue now, right, in the United States, how the policing issue affects African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans, you see that there's a group of folks, and some of them include us, but there's a cultural domination that suggests that we treat a group of people in a particular way, and so people are approached in a particular way, negatively that is, that causes them to be seen as a problem when they first encounter the police.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I know when I was growing up, we used to say little things like I said, we don't want to offend anybody, but with certain things that a black African American said about other groups of people, especially at that time. We had Puerto Ricans, but it wasn't as widespread as it is, now in America. And they used to say, like as kids, you used to joke and tease each other, say your mother eat Goya beans, but everybody eats Goya beans now. And we used to make fun of the Japanese, made in Japan. But who could tell me anything in this room, anything that you don't have that's not made in Japan? Because it was those certain stereotypes that we have. We do rice and beans, and it crosses the line to the type of food that we eat. Like we just like watermelon and fried chicken and things like that. So it takes on a whole another realm and down into like the food that we eat.
Yes.
So I'm gonna let you go with that.
I think stereotype has to also do with the media. Media, because I want to focus between African American and African because that's the area I know the most. I think that most of people, especially the African, will say, for example, African Americans are lazy. Mm-hmm. See, there's a lot of misconception. So they don't know too much the historical facts that went on back in the day, how the black were segregated, they couldn't move ahead. All this history they don't know because the history you learn over there is the history was done by the European.
But I want to interject on that because basically we built this country. We built the railroads and everything. So I don't know where the laziness came from.
Exactly. So it comes from with the image that they projected. Mm-hmm. They project this image of, I'm telling you, media is so powerful. They're going to project one little street, the gun going on. So people already automatically assume, oh man, they're like that. And the people for here, African American, they look at Africa with the negative images, Ebola and everything. But now knowing that if it's not for Africa, the whole world probably will collapse the same day. I guarantee you. The chocolate factories, how they make their chocolate, how they make their money. If Africa don't produce the cocoa, how you gonna eat chocolate? And imagine these people don't get chocolate, how many people will be laid off? For the car you make, the cell phone you use, for the cotton. So it's so much, but they're so powerful. So when they inject something like Ebola, people are dying, or you don't want to be identified with something that's negative. Nobody wants to be identified himself with somebody that's negative. So we have to do a lot of work. We have to do a lot of work as a community, try to go against stereotype, and by tangible, I would say, actions. Like we're trying to take people to Africa next year, for example. Just take action. Because if you see the new world order right now, it's over. Everywhere else is developed. It's Africa now. China is there. They're never going to leave. U.S. government is already there. Pay attention. You will see that Africa is the answer. But where is the spot of our people now, the black people, in this new wave of Africa emancipation?
Now, Liza, I have a question for you because you went to, you're an attorney.
Right.
and you know, going to law school. How was it when you went into law school, being a Hispanic woman?
It was pretty tough. I went to Rutgers Law School in New York, and I was fortunate enough to be a member of the minority student program, and we went through an orientation together before the actual commencement of law school. Once law school started, it was a whole different world. It was like a sea of white faces, and there was a few of us sprinkled, you know, within the classrooms. And the way they treated us, definitely, you know, our white counterparts, was different.
Okay, like you weren't up to par.
Right, like
you weren't smart enough.
The first misconception was because you came through the minority student program, which is an affirmative action set off. You know, you got a special pass sort of to go into law school. So we had to work twice as hard. And we went through things where we had research projects and they would hide the books, or they'd rip out, you know, the pages to the assignments. So we sort of experienced that kind of thing. But
really?
Yes, absolutely. It was definitely a very different experience, and I still experience it when I go to court. I go to court, and you know, I go up to the bailiff, and you know, sometimes they're rude, and they're like, "Are you an attorney?" And I have to assert myself and say, "Yes, I'm an attorney." The other day I was in court. Of course, you know, it's no secret that the legal profession is dominated by white males. It's an old white male club. All of the white male attorneys were taken care of out. Judges knew them. Hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I was left behind there for probably an extra, you know, hour or so. So, you know, my file didn't get pushed as fast as the other. But, you know, those are things that, you know, you just learn to live with and you overcome, and you just work twice as hard and you get the job done. Now,
Mr. Ibrahim, I have the same question for you. How was it when you started school here? Because you graduated from Rutgers also, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's interesting how the dynamic of these conversations in the classroom could be sometimes when we talk about race and discrimination or stereotyping in the premise of the class, how some students get away with some fundamentally wrong perception, and professors fail to react to that. And also, just to add to Liza's point, sometimes a lot of times actually, minorities are praised to being successful.
Hey, better watch Kim Corner. Don't you touch that dial.
Hello?
Hey girl, what's up? I'm about to go out. Do you want to go?
Girl, I just got home and there's so much laundry, I haven't a thing to wear.
Why not call H&H? They'll pick up your laundry for free.
Really?
Really, Lonnie? H&H offers free pickup and delivery services for all your laundry and dry cleaning needs. H&H provides free transportation to one of our 2 clean, comfortable, state-of-the-art locations. Let H&H make your life easier by handling all your laundry and dry cleaning needs. There are 2 convenient locations near you.
Tasty, delicious, mouth-watering. Butter and Cream Bakery, the home of the original bean pie, 100% natural. No additives, no preservatives. Amazingly delicious. The best bean pie in town, 44A 4th Avenue, East Orange, New Jersey.
And welcome back. And when we left, we were talking to Shadi about how difficult it was for him being a student at Rutgers, and Miss Liza Lopez becoming an attorney, how she's getting treated still today as an attorney. But Mr. Guerrier, I'm going to ask you, because you're in the business world. So how hard was it for you to accumulate and get properties and get investments and investors because of your ethnic background?
It's still extremely hard. And that's one of the reasons why I went to business for myself. I decided to skip college because I went to Seton Hall Prep, and I was just able to see some of the things that I was going to encounter. I tore my ACL, I lost my scholarship that I had going to Rutgers, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to go into business for myself. After that, after high school, I moved to California, I loved business. I came back home, and I never wanted to give anybody an opportunity to tell me what I can and I can't do. And even to this day, people are like, well, how did you do this restaurant? And people assume that you've done only negative things to you know, and I'm far from wealthy. I'm always grinding and doing certain things to stay ahead. And, you know, I just go through all sorts of things that you could imagine. And I just always keep my eye on the prize and don't let anything stop.
Is it hard getting loans?
I mean, I raise my own money.
Okay.
I don't go through banks. And like I said in the last interview, I'm in the process of opening my own bank. Because I'm tired of having, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And as minorities, we need to kill our own stereotypes and say, let's get together, no matter if you're black, white, Jewish, gay, straight, anything. We just really need to get together and do what we need to do for ourselves. Like you mentioned with the media, who is it really owned by?
Right.
You know, and it's time for us to stop looking for a helping hand and let's do it ourselves, because these things are put in place to keep us away from each other. Or you're Arab, or you're Haitian, or you're Jamaican, or you're African, as opposed to just seeing that we're human beings. And if we can't see that we're progressing very slowly, then you know, we have bigger trouble than we can see.
Let me say on the piece about the human, because people kind of always go to the we're just human, but in doing so, we neglect who we are. You know, we're African, we're Puerto Rican or whatever. So we there's this idea about being colorblind, and I think it's a farce. You know, because we're all different shades, and we bring that to it. So what we need to learn to do, I would argue, is to celebrate our differences and look at and build on our similarities, so that we don't have to hide who we are, but we just share it with somebody else. And it's not that one is better than the other, but it's just different. So, you know, because when people say the word colorblind, it's like saying the top wood is the same as the bottom wood. They're different. They look different. They are different, and they're beautiful in what they are. So let's celebrate that. That's what I say about it.
Okay, here's another one I found. Banana. Anybody heard banana?
Mm-hmm.
Banana.
I heard the banana boat.
Well, okay, now who was it contributed to when you heard of banana boat? Because
I mean, they said a lot of Haitians came here through boats.
okay, you came on the banana boat. Yeah, I heard that with the Jamaicans also. But this one says North American and Malaysia, Southeastern Asia. So I guess people that are color yellow color. Banana.
Banana also oftentimes means that people who are Asian, but they act white, or whatever that means. Right? Okay. So that's the kind of.
That's an and. I saw that too. It's a black woman that acts white. It's an and. Don't get my source. I went to Wikipedia and I looked up something. So we can't validate all these things. But I'm going to tell you, if you go in there, it's a whole list of things. I don't know whether people made them up and put them on there, because it was just things that I had never heard of. I've never heard of before. So we talked about the problems. What are some of the resolutions? Ms. Lopez, what are some of the resolutions that you might have?
You know, one of the things I have to say this because it's been bugging me. I completely agree with you that the media is like the major culprit, you know, for perpetuating negative stereotypes. And how many times do you tune into the news and all you see is violence, negative things, and, you know, minorities are the major protagonists on the news doing, you know, committing crimes and whatnot. I teach at a high school here in Newark. It used to be a magnet school. I don't know what it's labeled anymore, University of High School of Humanities. And wonderful things go on at that school day to day. I teach some of the brightest children, you know, who go on to be really successful professionals. We have events, we invite the media, they don't show up, right? So solutions, so how do we deal with that? And one of the things is we need to identify the problems and then find solutions to deal with it. And I think a major way is we do need to create our own news outlets, right? And support those existing minority news outlets that are in place, you know, like the WBGO.
Yeah, and Kim's Corner.
Right. And learn how to reach out to those positive sources that are like-minded, that have those commonalities, and build coalitions and networks, right, to strengthen whatever it is we're doing and to change the perception of our communities and our people. So that's what I would propose. We need to think about building coalitions with like-minded people. When we do positive things, make sure that you don't just reach out to the major networks who traditionally, I'm not going to say are not, but traditionally are not concerned with the positive stuff going on in our communities.
Because it's news making. You know, all that stuff makes news. You know, that's what they do with the non-reality. They call them reality shows. They're not really real anyway. They're all scripted, and that's what they do. And it's just propaganda, and that's how they make their money.
And they sensationalize.
Mm-hmm.
I think with social media, it's naturally happening because everyone now with their cell phone is a director. So a lot of like the whole change that happened in Egypt, you know, it started through social media. So most of my news I get through social media, through a regular person on the street, you know, that you wouldn't regularly get. So I think that is naturally happening right now.
That's a great point.
Well, I think this is all great. I just think we owe it to ourselves as individuals to be a little more proactive in learning about other ethnic groups, other culture, other individuals. Just interact at a personal level with somebody who's different than who you are. This will eliminate any stereotypes that whether you believed it in the past or you didn't. If I hear something about a specific group and I actually try to learn myself about that specific group, I learn the truth and the wrong and the false about the specific group. Social media is great. Starting our own media source like Kim's Corner is great as well, but it's still, people still have the source of information that's dominating pretty much the whole world nowadays available for them, and they could easily, you know, get the wrong message from anyone, not just the media.
That's kind of like the integrationist approach, though. And so that, you know, in the 60s, if we look back, 50s, 60s, 70s, the idea about integration, it didn't really work. You know, sitting at the next lunch counter next to somebody who had racist ideas didn't necessarily change their racist ideas or how they raised their children. I think it goes back to, you're talking about education. You got to look at how those children are being educated. But it also gets to the point, well, I think deals with partially with the media, but we have to tell our own story. Whether we're telling it in books, we're telling it on TV, we're telling it through song, we're telling it through art, all the venues that possible, we have to tell our story. And we have to recoup our own history and tell the stories about our history, about the past, because the stories that are out there about our past are wrong, are not the truth. That's right. And so that we have to be the proprietors of our own story, of our own legacy.
I think this is a very important point. I think information is the key. If you don't know, then you don't know. Then you miss out. Like I said, I was born and raised in Africa. I was getting fed that idea, oh, your people over there, they're bad. But then I see my folks, this guy look like my uncle, this guy look like this guy over there, this guy look like this guy over there. So now you kind of like confused. The love and the same, like Akil Khalfani, we have the same agenda. We know we have to educate our folks. Right now, I'm in the process of writing the book that's going to really shed the light on the whole continent. People will tell you Africa don't have paved roads, that the people sleep on the trees, right? But I'll guarantee you, there's some place in Africa, it will make the whole New Jersey look like property. You know, this is honest speaking. If Africa was that bad, how do people make money? You go to the international airport right now, and in a plane, who do you see in a plane going to Africa? You minority in the plane going to Africa. So we need to really wake up, and I think it's going to take action to really go through some of these things. But me, I'm more involved in economic development.
And I have another problem with minority sometimes, and us classifying ourselves as minority, because people of color are the majority.
That's right. That's right.
You know, and so we have to get out of that mindset too, that we are not the minority. You know, we are the moral majority.
Minority in the power.
And we need to take that power as people of color, you know, and we come from all different ethnic backgrounds, you can see it here, and we need to take back that power. And one way I know that we can do it, but we won't, is economically, because we do have the power of a dollar, baby. And we could really shut this country down. We could shut this country down in 2-3 days. Not even that.
That's right.
So, somebody go with this.
Well, that leads to the point that Kwame Ture used to always say, we got to organize. So it's not about one of us as individuals. I mean, I ran for office, I do this, I do a lot of stuff, and a lot of us do a lot of things. But it's not us as individuals, it's about how we collectively come together to challenge the problems, challenge racism, challenge sexism, challenge all these conflicting things so that we can get to the place of having a successful way out and having we have to find what tools we're going to use to challenge the social structure that exists today that are leaving poor folks behind, that are leaving different ethnic and racial groups behind, and how do we galvanize our own collective resources to move an agenda forward?
Or we can be very, very proactive about it and create our own source of revenue. You know, tap into the international economics. Just like I say, I'm a student of international relation. Globalization is a reality. Whether you want it or not, it's going to happen. So why don't you tap on the resources that are there? That they're just being limited, trying to recycle the same thing over there, which probably won't work. But the world is big now, and it's a lot of opportunity our folks can do. So we just have to be a little bit more proactive and think out of the box. Because if we don't think out of the box, I'm telling you, it's going to be about economic development. The guy, somebody that don't have money, can't eat in the morning and have a lunch, trust me, he's not a free man. He's not a free man. So we need to think smart like all these folks have done. The Chinese today, that was nothing at the bottom. Look at them today. They even surpassed the U.S. in money. The U.S. will own China a lot of $1 trillion. So we need to really regroup, go back to the Pan-African ideas, and we have to rethink. It's a new future which is bright for us, and take that opportunity and move on with it.
But we cannot forget about again, as Akil mentioned, the social structure that this country was built upon. A lot of folks around here don't even have the mental capacity to think that it could be successful. That's right. This needs to be changed first. We need to feel that we can succeed. How do we do that? Education. I think education is a key piece here. We should pressure our young folks to go to college, to go to school and go to college and get the degree, regardless of whether they're going to use it or not. Probably you won't. But to just walk into any space, any room, any store with a confidence that they're educated and they can succeed. Before we could even start thinking about how we could dominate.
I'd like to interject now because I wanted to speak after him. I think that what we're talking about is a huge undertaking, and there's a lot of passion in this room, and we all know that something needs to be done, but like, where do we start? I think where we start is with our children. Our young people here in Newark, really, they're living in crisis. The things they see day to day, some of them are hopeless, some of them come out of their homes in the morning, they don't even eat breakfast in the morning. Sometimes at school, that's the only meal they'll have. I mean, I can't begin to discuss some of the things my kids go through. So, but what I think is, how do we deal with this issue? How do we move our people forward? We start with our children. Because as you mentioned, there are older folks who are already set in their way. Maybe they don't have the mental capacity, they don't have the education, they don't have the toolkit. But you know what? Our young people, that's our future. They're our future leaders. And we need to have these discussions with them and begin to open their minds and find ways to empower them, right, to take on this job, this task.
How do you think President Obama has changed any of the, racial tensions, stereotypes, Have you seen any change? Have you seen it more since Obama's been in office?
Well, I think just the fact that he's black and just being in office has given, a lot of young people, wow, it could really happen. As far as his work and what he's done, that's just a lot of politics. I'm not going to get into the politics, but as far as him, his physical being there, it has given young black kids say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. It's not necessarily becoming president, but being something of higher standard, like you said. So that's what I personally feel about him being in office, about his political, agenda or what he has and hasn't done.
It's just him being a black man and being there, and you say that. And
absolutely. For me, it didn't do
Akil, what do you have to say? Because I see your face.
I actually agree on that because for my kids, that's all they've known. He's been in office almost 8 years now. So if you think about the past 6 years, almost 8 years, that all the kids that have grown up during that time, we couldn't fathom it. Even the day of
that's what I would never see.
Even when he won, most of us from a previous generation still didn't believe it, right? And so then, but for my children, that's their collective consciousness. They don't know anything different. So for them, it is a landmark situation. They know two little African girls who were in the White House, and a grandmother and a sister. Who is a sister, true sister in all means, even no matter how much they don't like her, and a brother. But now on the political side, when Obama came in office, we started off with this whole color. What is it? The post-racial society. Obviously, that was a farce. We know that wasn't true. But that when we start thinking about the transformation that he's made, I think that the when you look at the what they call Obamacare, the Act for America, Affordable Healthcare for America, I think that has had a tremendous impact on certain folks who haven't had access to healthcare and things of that nature. And there's some other things, but then there's other things that are problematic. Specifically problematic to people of African descent. The whole situation in Libya, problematic for people of African descent. The situation in other places around the world, the way he's talked to Africans on the continent has been very different than he talks to European countries who have the same type of problem. So why is it the dialogue is not the same? Because of the politics piece, and to me that's problematic. And so then, can he change that? I haven't seen it. So, but I'd like to, but I haven't seen it.
If I could just add one more to that, me being Haitian, I wasn't overly impressed that Obama wasn't a first black president, because me being Haitian, I would always
had black, you did too, and in Africa you did also.
But it's sad that Black Americans over here have such a disconnect with Africa that they aren't happy about the fact that there's black African presidents as well.
Some African.
Right.
Yeah, you can't say all.
The majority though.
Yeah. It's miseducation.
It may be from Africa descent, his paternal side, but in the end of the day, he was born and raised in the United States, so he's American. But he has a root in Africa like everybody else. So, and he himself, he did some little soul searching for his own when he was a kid. He traveled to the motherland, got to, last time when he went to Cape Ghana, he went to Cape Cod, he went through the passage. So, and then himself, as a human being, he knows he can't solve every issue. But what we need to do, like I keep on saying, time is running, and the world is moving forward, and there's a lot more to gain than to lose today's world. And I think education is a key. And how do we educate folks about globalization and their full potential? That's why we need our own media. I think we had one and we lost it, I guess. I don't know which, I don't want to say name here, but we need our own media where we can screen our own film. People say most of the time it takes a village to raise a child. Some people have never seen the village in their entire life. How do they even know about the village? How does they even really the village symbolize this? What's the symbol of the village? Do you understand when they say it takes a village to raise a child? And it's true in Africa. And you can go to Africa and see the villages 3,000 years ago the way they used to look. You don't still see them the way they are. And then you got paved road, 6-star hotel that costs maybe $1,000 a night, thing like that. You can have that. So you can have both.
So the next time I go to Africa, that's where you paying for me to stay.
No, I want to take you. I want to take you to the roots because I want you to know. I want you to know your roots. To know that yes, slavery happened. We can change it. But one, we need to remember, when people were taken, they left family there.
That's right.
They left brothers. They left.
And it was
clans.
a disconnect.
So
it was a disconnect of our heritage and our history. We can't trace our truth like everybody else can because they took us away from it. So it's harder for us to trace. Because I've been to Africa, and I've seen it. And I went to some of those villages, so I know. And I cried when I went there. I really did, because I felt like that was the motherland, and that's where I came from. But it's been such a disconnect when they brought us over during slavery. It's hard. It's hard for us to connect back to that, because that was something that was almost literally destroyed. But they took the father, they put him here. They took the mother, they put it here. They took the son, they put him here. You know, so they just totally tried to disconnect us from our roots.
There's one important thing I want to interject. Most of people thought or think that when slavery happened, Africans were sent here, and then the people in Africa were better off. Do you know, even in the 19th century, Africans still in the charcoal. I'll send you photos. They were still in the charcoal in Africa, working in a rubber plantation in the Congo.
Yeah, well, all of us
That's
did
like
come
in the
over
90s.
here.
So Africans were carrying the European on their hammock. That's just like in the 1960s. They just got independence in the 1960s. So all these things, people were doing what we call in the French travaux forcés, hard labor. You work on your own farm, and you give the money to the European, and you pay taxes, and you don't take anything from whatever you produce. So those are some reality that most of people don't know. Absolutely. So what I'm saying, you travel, but every ethnic group travel.
I have a question for you. When your parents came over here, what did they classify them as when they came here?
We are classified as white.
That's what I thought. Mm-hmm.
And going back to your comment about President Obama with Libya, Libyans are actually considered white as well. So Middle Eastern North Africans are white on paper. I remember when I went to school, I did my bachelor's in Sunni Newfalls.
Me too. Okay. I put others, and I wrote Middle Easterns, and my application came back, and I was told that doesn't exist. You have to pick one of those, and I read the definition of the categories, and we are considered white without the privileges.
Can I make a comment about your question about Obama's impact? Being that we're doing a show on racism, we can't negate the fact that the powers that be, or Congress and politics, made it very difficult for him to make the impact I think that he wanted to make, and that he would have made. I mean, they were fighting him at every turn. Look at what happened with Obamacare. Look at what's gone on with immigration reform. I mean, they have coalesced, as I'm suggesting we do, and they have made it very difficult for him to implement the type of reforms that we need, and I think that he wanted to see happen. And again, I hate to keep harping on this, but if you look at the composition of Congress, what is it? Right?
The minority.
We need to prepare our kids.
The minority.
Right, so we need to prepare our kids and our future generations to populate those seats so that we get some equity.
Yeah, right? And that's without passing the torch. And I always say that a lot of times in politics, and I've seen it happen, where people, you just keep electing the same people. I don't even want to get into that. Right. Where we just keep electing the same people in the office. There's no change. And we don't groom people to pass that torch. Okay. And we need to pass the torch to the younger generations that's coming up, because we're not doing it. We're not doing it. Okay, I got another one for you. Alligator bait. What'd you say? That's right. Black babies. A black person, especially a black child, is more commonly used in states where alligators are found, like Florida. I had never heard of that. Alligator bait.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is such a great dialogue. We can talk about this. We're going to have to come and do another show on something else. We have a great panel. Everybody, my audience here, everybody give yourself an applause for coming out. Mr. Guerrier, Mr. Khalfani, Ms. Kassimou, Ms. Lopez, and Mr. Ibrahim. And I'm glad that you all came and we got to have this discussion because we were trying to get this thing going and we got it. And just give yourselves an applause, everybody. So I want to thank everybody for watching Kim's Corner. And we have to keep this dialogue going. We have to keep it in our communities. You're an educator. You know, you're at Rutgers. We have to keep this dialogue going. And Akil will have us all on his show, and we'll talk about it again. So I just want to thank everybody for watching Kim's Corner.